to this.
The Americans, because they listen to their government, follow this advice. They start to eat more and more and more carbohydrates, and they eat less and less protein. And there's a report earlier this year that the Americans' intake of all protein sources from animals has gone down dramatically, and their carbohydrate intake has gone up like that.
See, Timmy's right. See, Donata, you're wrong.
And there's a report earlier this year that the Americans' intake of all protein sources from animals has gone down dramatically, and their carbohydrate intake has gone up like that. And there's a report earlier this year that the Americans' intake of all protein sources from animals has gone down dramatically, and their carbohydrate intake has gone up like that. And there's a report earlier this year that the Americans' intake of all protein sources from animals has gone down dramatically, and their carbohydrate intake has gone up like that. And there's a report earlier this year that the Americans' intake of all protein sources from animals has gone down dramatically, and their carbohydrate intake has gone up like exactly that. The same time, you know what's happened to their health. The obesity rates have matched the carbohydrate intake, as have the diabetes rates. They've just gone up like that together. And that is some of the firmest evidence that humans are not really designed to eat masses of carbohydrates. And that as soon as you take fat out the diet, you can get into trouble. So that's the medical side.
I wash my clothing on my washboard, fat abs.
Man, look at all that fat rippling off my arms, all that fat hanging off my arms. There's not even anything to pinch. That's all you can pinch on there. Tim Noakes, you don't have a clue, mate. Cars make you lean.
But seriously, Tim, get on a plane, go to Kenya. You live in Africa. Jump on a plane, go to Kenya, and you'll get off the plane and go, oh, I was wrong. What do Kenyans live on? Rice, sugar, a lot of sugar. Kenya is one of the highest sugar consumers on the planet. And one of the lowest rates of heart disease, obesity, diabetes on the planet. Interestingly enough, what else they eat? We've got sugar, we've got rice, we've got corn, maize, ugali, bananas, plantains, carbs, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Kenyans as a nation, very slim. When Kenyans get fat, why is that? Because they eat more ugali? No, because they can get more meat and dairy. Expensive foods, Western foods, animal products, that's where the money's at. When you're a poor Kenyan, all you can afford is the basic necessities, the basic starches so you can do your job. Go to China. Now, why are 2 billion Chinese people slim if Tim Noakes says carbohydrates are the cause of obesity? China literally lives on refined carbohydrate as its staple in the form of white rice. So does Indonesia, so does Thailand, so does Cambodia, so does Burma, so does Malaysia, so does Philippines, so does Vietnam, so does Laos. Skinny Asians. Skinny Asian syndrome. The Asian paradox is what they call it. Live on refined carbohydrates, be slim as. Live on fat, be fat as. You can tell when an Asian's got money because they're fat. All of a sudden they abandon the traditional diet of rice, vegetables, and maybe a little portion of fish. Check out this Okinawa study. So here's some data from US National Archives. Okinawans' traditional diet circa 1950. Total calories, Okinawans around 1800. Percent of protein, around 9%. Of carbohydrates, around 85%. Percent of fat, around 6%. So very lean diet. Very lean diet. People say that Okinawans eat a lot of fish. Well, that is untrue. It's a carbohydrate-based diet. Well, there are almost 400 grams of carbs per day. 400 carbs per day. Now, people out there will tell you over 150 grams of carbs per day will create insidious obesity. So the Okinawans weren't a very active marathon runner culture, obviously. They were just happy chilling out. So a lot of carbohydrates for a relatively sedentary society, resulting in a very lean physique. You just go down, nuts, seeds, sugars, oils, not much oil at all there, 3 grams per day. Legumes, about 71 grams. Fish, 15 grams per day, so about 100 grams per week, which is a little piece on your palm, 100 grams per week. And people said Okinawans had fish for breakfast, fish for lunch, fish for dinner, fish smoothies, fish muesli, whatever. Not true at all. Not true at all. High carbohydrate, sweet potatoes, rice, corn. Not much fruit, but very diet high in starches, high carbohydrate. So anyone who says the Okinawans lived long life because they had a lot of fish in their diet, they actually don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. Okinawans ate very little fish. So Tim Noakes doesn't have a fucking clue when it comes to nutrition. All Tim Noakes is doing is he's riding on the coattails of the Atkins, heart disease, high fat, low carb, heart disease, 400 pounds. You got 400 pounds because you lived on steamed rice or biodynamic brown rice and organic broccoli and banana water smoothies. That's why you got the 400 pounds. Now come over here and have this Atkins death burger with bacon between 2 beef patties and you have that, and that's going to make you slim. Tim Noakes, you need to read this book, Starch Solution by Dr. McDougall. Dr. McDougall was actually published in clinical data studies. You haven't. And while you haven't read Dr. Esselstein's book, Prevention of Reversible Heart Disease, Dr. Esselstein's published clinical data studies. You haven't. And if you think carbs give you diabetes, check out Dr. Neil Bernard's book, Prevention of Reversible Diabetes. Dr. Neil Bernard, he's also published clinical data studies. You haven't. And lastly, for bedtime reading, read the China study. Professor Campbell, one of the world's most esteemed nutritional biochemists, studied over 300 clinical data studies. You haven't. Now listen carefully because these are the hilarious sound bites from Tim Noakes. Totally crazy.
And glucose is a highly toxic. It's highly toxic.
Did Noakes just say glucose was highly, highly toxic?
And glucose is a highly toxic. It's highly toxic.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
And glucose is a highly toxic. It's highly toxic.
I guess glucose is so toxic the brain exclusively runs on glucose. Every single cell in the human body runs on glucose. But glucose is toxic according to Timothy Noakes.
If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. If you're eating fat, you will not get fat. The leanest. So, the people with the highest fat intake are the bodybuilders. And they know if they can get their fat intake up to 90%, and the only reason it's 90% is because they have to have some veg to put the olive oil on. So they will lose weight dramatically. Even a highly fit bodybuilder will lose 3 kilograms in a week if they can get their fat intake up to 100%. Because it's so satiating.
I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. Bodybuilders eat a 90% calories from fat diet. Bodybuilders eat a 90% calories from fat diet, according to Tim Noakes. And if they get to 100% of the calories from fat, aka drinking olive oil, so according to Tim Noakes, if you just live on olive oil for the rest of your life, you'll save your weight loss problems. You know why? Because you'll fucking die. You won't have a fat body anymore because you'll be dead. Tim Noakes says that you should live on a 100% fat diet, a 100% oil diet, because bodybuilders will lose 3 kilos in a week. So that means you should eat olive oil for the rest of your life, 100% calories from fat. Tim Noakes is, sorry mate, you're a fucking moron, a nutritional moron, man. A nutritional dimwit. The reason why people lose 3 kilos in a week when they go on a 100% fat diet is because they lose their glycogen water retention, you fool. They lose their glycogen weight, which is about 3 kilos. So all you have done is you've read some bro science, PhD, Atkins, low carb, paleo, primal nonsense, marketing gimmick, fad, schmad, schmammy, spammy, whatever. You've read that, and you're like, oh, wow, this translates to like, if you lose 3 kilos of weight, that means there must be 3 kilos of fat mass. So therefore, 100% fat diet, aka ketogenic diet, must be the solution to society's obesity epidemic. I think I'm going to write my own little book on that and cash in as well. It's preposterous.
I think that you shouldn't eat very often because eating itself is toxic to your body. That if you starve animals, they live much longer. And humans who starve live much longer. I think that you shouldn't eat very often because eating itself is toxic to your body. That if you starve animals, they live much longer. And humans who starve live much longer. I think that you shouldn't eat very often because eating itself is toxic to your body. That if you starve animals, they live much longer. And humans who starve live much longer. I think that you shouldn't eat very often because eating itself is toxic to your body. That if you starve animals, they live much longer. And humans who starve live much longer.
People say, hang on, Harley, Tim Noakes eats all the fatties once, but he's still sort of pretty slim. What's the deal with that? Well, obviously, judging by Tim Noakes' opinion on food is toxic, eating's toxic, we should starve as much as we can. Tim Noakes is on an extreme calorie deficit. I looked up Tim Noakes' diet. He eats one tiny little palm-sized meal a day. So he's probably maximum 800,000 calories a day. Doesn't matter what you eat, you're going to lose weight on 1,000 calories a day. That's less than starvation. Tim Noakes is eating less than a 1-year-old baby. So that's the answer there. So Tim Noakes doesn't have a clue. He's a relative noob to nutrition, and he's just sort of going, well, what's the good thing to write a book on? What's trending on Amazon? Oh, the Atkins diet's trending again. Let's write some books about that. So that's all that's happening. So no offense to Tim Noakes, just sharing my comments and criticisms. You're a nutritional dimwit right now, Tim. Get educated, read the books I mentioned, and please go visit Kenya someday and watch what the fastest marathoners in the world eat and watch how lean the nation is on high starches. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, carb the fuck up. Peace.